Hey guys, thank you for checking out this episode. We'd love your support by heading to patreon.com/freshly grounded. It really does make a difference in helping us continue making this content. And if not, no stress. Enjoy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Freshly Grounded, episode 203. Okay, I'm just trying to sort a few things out here, so you have to bear with me because we are recording this episode in a slightly different way, and therefore I'm just trying to make sure that it's all done, because the honest truth, being transparent with our lovely audience, is that we're recording this very late on a Thursday, and this episode comes out, as you guys know, on a Friday. And for that reason, there's a few things that have to be done on the technical side to make sure that this is basically produced in time. And so that requires me to press a few buttons while we're live. But we are, okay, I've done. Right, we're here. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Freshly Grounded episode 203. This episode, and probably all of the episodes for the foreseeable future, as in like a month, will most likely be virtual. And that basically means that the other person who is on the other side of the episode will be on video call. I don't know why I'm explaining this. Everybody knows what virtual is. We done it in the last lockdown, but it's the same thing that we did in the last lockdown. We're doing that again for safety, health and precautions, and social distancing reasons, and so on and so forth. But we might have one or two episodes in the office, if, for example, time, space, and kind of regulations and safety allows us to do so. So don't be surprised if we do that. But majority, if not all of the episodes for now, will be back to video calls. And the response to them last time was really, really positive and really, really cool. Like, nobody had any it didn't like affect the quality of the podcast really, and none of our audience complained about, the episodes suck because they're virtual. So really grateful to you guys for kind of sticking with us as we're all kind of trying to adapt through this. This is episode 203, and it's with a really, really interesting person who Sam and I both have a lot of love for, and who has really and truly, we actually are probably really, really grateful for that. And we haven't ever explained to him how grateful we are to him, because he's been advocate, a backer, a supporter of Freshly Grounded in terms of like waving our flag ever since the beginning. He's really supported us, and he's always made his support for us very vocal, in that he just really supports the movement, loves what we do, loves our audience, loves the tribe, and the love is mutual. And so it felt right to do an episode with Bouaziz as we were going into lockdown, because I think that a lot of kind of Bouaziz's lifestyle mindset, I was talking to the boys about him in the office today. I was saying, how he is, he lives it, right? And you respect it because he lives it. Whereas somebody else who might live in this manner, you might look at and say, oh, that's quite a peculiar way to live, because we're not used to it. But he actually lives in such a holistic and pure manner, which is probably a lot closer to the sunnah than we do with, or than I do with, like consumerism and like, this kind of like idea of exercising when I can, eating whatever's easiest, etc., etc., etc. I know that's what I'm like. And Bouaziz is a lot more of, I don't know, I'd say like a purist. And at first you look at that lifestyle and it looks peculiar because it's a lifestyle that you're not used to. And then when you see that it's not a marketing ploy for him, it's not branding for him, he lives it. And that's when you look at it and you respect it so much, because a person who has integrity, a person who lives their truth, who follows their action, who follows their words with actions that are as true to their words as can be, you can only give respect to that person. And that's where I see Bouaziz, man. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode with a really, really lovely and more so interesting human being, a brother, Bouaziz. And like always, guys, please do have a look at our description box. And if you can support the charity projects that we're kind of supporting right now, it'd be amazing. Just click the links in the bio and do go ahead and support them. With that being said, this is episode 203 with Bouaziz. And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast.
Well, it's not exactly brand new anymore, is it?
Welcome to Freshly Grounded, the podcast.
That's better.
Created by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded.
After that bit.
Created by
After that bit.
best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
Okay, and we are officially in the building. Let's bring Bouaziz in. Assalamu alaikum, Bouaziz. How you doing?
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Faisal.
How's things, Bouaziz, man? How's things?
Alhamdulillah. Honoured to be back on again.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on, man. I was just saying in the intro that I was speaking about you to the brothers in the office, and give me a second. Let me just make sure that everything's working fine. I'm going to double check it on my phone. As you know, we're recording this in a bit of a peculiar way. Okay, let's just make sure that your audio is fine. Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on, man. Let's bring Bouaziz in. Assalamu alaikum, Bouaziz. How you doing? Yeah, we got you on. All right, Bouaziz, yeah, I was basically explaining the intro. I know you would have maybe heard it as you were in the green room there, the virtual green room. But I was saying that I was kind of talking to the boys in the office, right? They were like, "Who you got on Freshly Grounded today?" And I was saying it's a guy who, and I used the word peculiar, but I think that the word peculiar has a very negative connotation because I wasn't using it in a negative term. I was using it in a term that. You live a lifestyle that I think is quite alien to a lot of us, and that's because, or me. I don't want to cast my audience in the same net as I would cast myself in because it's perhaps a bit of a negative light that I'm putting myself in here. And what I'm basically saying is that a lot of us fall into what's easy in life, right? And so that can come into what's easy to eat, then come in what's easy to do, the easiest way to wake up, the easiest way to get to work, the easiest way to be in your general day-to-day with regards to exercising. Bro, even in regards to breathing, the easiest way to breathe. Like, if it's easy for me right now to not focus on my breathing, I'm not going to focus on it. I'm just going to talk as fast as possible because I want to get my words out, right? And then you look at someone like yourself, who, to someone like me, it's a peculiar life in the sense that it's not the norm for me, right? But it's one that I love and respect, and I wish that I could adopt. And so I say that in a very positive context, and to say that I really commend you in it. So I hope that you took no offense to me using that kind of word because of my lack of vocabulary. But bro, you focus on your things as small as your breathing, and you always talk about kind of the importance of movement, of breathing, of eating, of what goes in your body, all the way to kind of how you treat your body externally as well. And I know you're a big advocate and a practitioner of hijama as well. So I'll start with this. Are you still that Bouaziz that we know and love from all those episodes ago?
Wow. Bouaziz has definitely evolved a lot.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. And that's what I think Bouaziz represents, is a constant pursuit of evolution, trying to reach higher states, and the Muslim should always aim for ihsan. So, trying to practice and be and live in the most excellent of ways, which I think throughout my journey I've slowly refined my approach as I've got to understand who I am and what I want from my human experience, So you could say there are a lot of the things you said have been foundational building blocks to create a more stable, more relaxed, more focused Bouaziz, the breathing, the movement, the eating, the hijama. So yeah, I think the first time we met, it was quite peculiar environment as well, right? We pitched up inside a coffee shop. So alhamdulillah, we're here in the Bouaziz Men's Spa and Wellness Lab. I'm sure we'll get into that. It's a beautiful space, lovely energy. So yeah, I would agree, but Bouaziz is different in so many ways, which is very important, and we should always strive to be different from where we were yesterday. A constant pursuit of growth, which is what we are taught by our teachers and our tradition.
So let's start with the Wellness Lab. because
Yeah.
that's probably the most obvious and biggest kind of change that's been happening in last few weeks. So, what is the Bouaziz / Menspire Wellness Lab?
Alhamdulillah. So we're in it right now. It's a space which has had a lot of emphasis placed on energy, and real conversation, honest conversation, sincere conversation. It is a space where we do treatment, therapies from, working on the mind and the body, the spirit. Just to give all the kind of your listeners, maybe some people, maybe many people are not familiar with what I do and kind of the underlying philosophy of how I've practiced, but it's embedded within a model, a holistic model, which we know is the biopsychosocial spiritual model, right? So every day when I practice with patients, when I look at myself and I study myself, I study my environment and my human experience, I break it down into 4 compartments: biology, psychology, sociology, and spirituality. Because I'll probably keep referring to these as we continue through this, because it can just bring us back into focus. Because as you may know, I can easily get carried away talking about many different topics, which I find very fascinating and interesting. So the Wellness Lab here, it's in Hertfordshire, it's in St Albans, it's at the bottom of Menspire Salon. It's a beautiful collaboration between myself and Menspire, Sam, Josh, and the gentleman here. And we find a lot of core values which align when it comes to the industries that we work in. So the Wellness Lab is a space where I'm offering coaching and treatment, but it's unorthodox in its approach. It's a Bouaziz space. It's not your average clinic. It's not your average hijama clinic or your average chiropractic clinic. It's more than that. It's more.
In what way is it different?
In essence, that we don't focus on treatment. We focus on transformation. Yeah. So every single individual that comes in here, I have a very deep, real, connected heart-to-heart conversation with them to try and understand their needs, their wants, their life history, their trauma, their pain, their limitations from a biopsychosocial spiritual perspective. And I know I'm very confident and very relaxed in my approach now, because as you mentioned before, I live and breathe this, and I have done for so many years. And what makes me great at what I do is my vulnerability and my honesty. I'm not afraid to be honest and pick out my issues and my limitations and the mistakes that I've made throughout my journey, which ultimately have led me to here, because I'm always searching to become better. And I'm constantly on that pursuit, and the more I search, the more I research, the more I read, but the more I spend time in nature, disconnected from any sort of thinking or reading or acquisition of knowledge. The knowledge comes from my senses, which I've been instructed to do by the Most High, just to go and sit and reflect, So that has been a huge teacher for me over the last 5-6 years, more so recently as I've gone deeper into my own healing.
You talk about your connection with nature, and I think that's a lovely place I'd like to start.
Sure.
When I was active on socials, and I've only just started becoming more active on them now, I remember I would often see your Instagram story, and you'd be in the middle of nowhere in nature, on some greenery, and you'd be practicing breathing exercises. You'll be exercising, kind of doing like karate style movement. Is that something that you still do? Because I know you relocated now, as you said, to Hertfordshire.
Yeah, I still do that. It's a huge part of my daily living.
Where did you find the space?
Yeah, Hertfordshire is difficult. It's challenging because when I was based in Leicester, we had a beautiful space. I was there for so many years, so I was able to explore and find nature. find the nature that I wanted to be in. Nature's very accessible. You know, you can go to a park, you can go to greenery, but I'm looking for raw, unfiltered, non-busy nature. I'm looking for mountains and hills and a complete disconnect from the city life, a complete disconnect from the matrix. You know, so I'm yet to find that pleasant space in Hertfordshire. Yeah, I've only been here a few months, but because I travel back and forth to Leicester very regularly to see patients, I always go back to the spaces where I'm very familiar with.
And when you're in nature disconnecting, what goes through your mind?
It's beautiful because the essence of being in nature is to be in nature, is to try not think, you know, is to be present. And presence, like, just to bring some understanding, like khushu' in salah, you're almost in a meditative state where you're reading from your heart, not from your mouth, right? And your organism feels the energy of the Quran with the heart, not with the tongue, you know? So when I'm in nature, I'm not trying to think or clear my mind. I'm just present. I'm studying the grass. I'm studying the leaves. I'm watching the birds. I'm watching the deer. I'm watching my feet as I walk. I'm focusing on my breathing, which completely disconnects me from any thought or conscious engagement. You know, I'm just there. And that's the beauty of nature. If you're in a pure, clean space, where there's not many people, there's hardly any people, and you're just engaging the natural order, which to an extent isn't touched by man. There is an ecosystem there. Nothing's going through my mind. I'm like a little kid. I'm playing. I'm walking. I'm barefoot. I'm connecting to the soil. I'm touching the grass. I'm breathing the air. You know, that is the medicine. So I come out of that, and you know, after 2, 3, 4 hours of being and walking and exploring and hiking and running and jumping around and moving and breathing, and then I realize, oh, back into my car now, back into the real world. I start to see people, you know, a couple of people walking their dogs. But as I'm in it, I'm almost in a trance where I'm not really thinking. I'm flowing, and that's where the healing comes.
Have people seen you in that state, like like you said, like people walking their dogs or something? And have you had any reactions, kind of people seeing you barefooted in for example, like the forest, and
Yeah.
you're
Always.
sometimes you're crouched down, sometimes you're running, sometimes you're walking, sometimes just breathing?
Yeah, a lot, you know. And again, I've tried to refine the times that I go, you know what I mean? Because I really don't want to see people.
But what is that reaction like though when they have seen you?
It really, I mean, like the other day, I was just walking, I was in the park, and I was just looking down, and I was on the floor, and I was just studying the grass, and I was studying the space, you know. And this girl just said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'm just said, you know, "I'm just foraging." You know what I mean? It's mushroom season. I'm looking for beautiful wild mushrooms that I can use in my cooking, you know, that grow wild, that are not poisonous. And so I was just looking for some edible mushrooms that I can take home and put in my omelette. You know, again, the process of looking for this wild food or wild berries when they're growing, you know, I'm just engaged with like the most organic foods that I can get, which I've picked from my hand, which has not been tampered with by the agricultural systems which we've created to develop our food, you know, which fuels the supermarkets and the food industry. And it's just little things like that. You know, there's an energy. Like, I'm probably not going to find loads of mushrooms that I can eat. It is the mushroom season, right? And there's big mushrooms growing, there's little mushrooms growing. They're growing off trees, and they're growing in grass, and growing off dead kind of bark. And I'm just like, I find it fascinating. So I might not find many mushrooms, but the process of me looking for them and trying to be present in that space is medicinal to my body. Because now I've disconnected from any thought, any reflection. I'm just there. I'm like a little kid. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much fun, you know? And what that does, there's a meaning to that from a health perspective, because what that does is it turns off the primal stress mechanism in your body, and it puts you into a rest and digest state where your serotonin is up and these happy hormones are up and these neurotransmitters which keep you allow you to be blessed and positive. They run around your bloodstream because you're just engaged with this pure creation of Allah, you know. So
yeah, I remember when I was reading, I mentioned that when I was reading How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie, that one of the tips that he gave was this idea of like, when you're stressed and you're a warrior, you need to remind yourself how many illnesses come from being stressed.
Yeah.
And then you need to weigh out the pros and cons. Is this stress worth me becoming seriously ill for, whether it's stomach ulcers or anything else? So it seems like kind of by completely stripping it back and being at one with yourself, being with the nature, you're in such a serene place mentally that when you say healing, it makes a lot of sense to me, because it's almost like you're counteracting those illnesses that could come from stress. You're almost giving like the medicine, which is the complete opposite of stress, which is like absolute serenity, right?
Yeah. And you know, I've spent many years studying and practicing and investing in my education and consulting at a high level with all sorts of people, all sorts of athletes. And what I'm trying to educate the masses is that there's a lot of free medicine out there. You know, I'd love to be able to make money from telling people to go into nature, but I can't. It's not mine. You know, nature belongs to the Most High. It's completely free of charge. You know, so the healing is there, but if you're going to go into nature, you have to respect the space. And, you know, you're not going to receive the blessings and the healing from it if you're not completely in submission to the space. So if you've got your shoes on, if you're on your phone, there's no medicine. You're still connected to the matrix. You're still connected to your thoughts. Wow. So it's all or nothing. For you to receive the blessings of nature, you have to be completely in nature, stripped back from shoes, stripped back from people. Like I spend a lot of time in nature by myself. Sometimes I'll go with my wife or my cat. But ultimately, I want to be there by myself, because I can start to experience what it's like to be relaxed. And that's when the healing starts, because nature and this complete disconnect from thoughts and thinking, this subconscious ticking time bomb, which is our subconscious mind, you know, which has been conditioned by our life experience. Things are going on in our mind that we don't even know, we don't recognize. It's the backup generator. We can only hold a certain amount of information consciously. So, you know, our subconscious mind does a lot of the thinking, a lot of the processing. You know, have I still got you, Faisal?
Yeah, I'm listening. It did look like a glitch.
It looked like you know, you're almost like there was we lost the connection. But
no, man, do you know what, Bouaziz? I think that as a person gets older, right, he's able to appreciate more the things that you're saying. And I think that when we first met, I was very young, and then the second time we met, I was still fairly young, but the conversation wasn't necessarily very free flowing, right? We were kind of speaking a lot about work and that kind of stuff. And so now when I'm listening to you now, I feel like I'm listening to you now for the first time speaking about your kind of connection with nature since we first met in Bristol, which was around 4 years ago, right? And
you're a father now.
Yeah, I'm a father, and you're a married man. Yeah. You know, you weren't at the time. And now as I'm growing older and I'm listening to you, not only can I just appreciate from the outside what you're saying, but I can actually kind of connect with it. I think to myself, wow, I can really appreciate where times of isolation would really do me some good. And then I can relate it to the sunnah and relate it to the fact that the Prophet ﷺ would take time out and be in isolation. And then when you're talking about being away from the world and completely disconnecting, it makes me feel like, wow, that seems like that's actually the asl. That's actually like the right thing to do every now and again.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like you're saying, it makes you feel so connected, but also because it's something that we've seen in the sunnah, these times of isolation, and also because this phone and this technology and internet, it is all artificial, it is all kind of put together, right? But when you're stripping it all back, and you go as far as literally, as you're saying, you're walking with your bare feet literally in nature, that I can now appreciate, probably to a deeper extent, why that's so valuable that I couldn't appreciate before.
Yeah. You okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I was done.
Yeah.
was-
No. You know what it is. The nervous system obviously governs our, a lot of the processes in our body and our perception of the world. So what I do by nature, what I do with nature, is to try and turn the nervous system into healing mode. Healing mode of the nervous system can only happen. Growth, rest, building of cells, up regulation of immune function, all of these things which help you grow and stay healthy and strong, can only happen at a certain frequency. So your nervous system has to resonate at a rest and digest. Otherwise, if you're in fight or flight, so rest and digest, fight or flight. If you're living
So these
in
are the
fight
two
or flight,
opposites, are they? So the opposite of fight or flight
rest and digest.
is rest and digest. Okay.
Yeah. These are
And that's generally what you get in your sleep, right? So like when they say that you grow in your sleep, babies grow in their sleep,
Most people
your
don't-
muscles grow in your sleep, and that kind of stuff.
Many people cannot sleep. They struggle to sleep because they're unable to turn off the fight or flight. The cortisol and the adrenaline is still running through the blood, not
Fine.
because they're constantly stressed, because there is a subconscious stress in their kind of backup generator mentally, which is still dealing with things that are not happening now. It's either happening this morning, it was happening yesterday, or even a stress that might be happening 10 years ago. The trauma. So many ailments, when I take people through a health assessment, they come to see me, I take them through an initial assessment and a consultation. That's why I work with the mind, and I look at trauma and these kind of biopsychosocial spiritual, because I'm trying to understand why you're sick and why you have this pain and why you haven't progressed in this part of your life. It might not be because something happening to you today, or because of work or your manager or your relationships today. It might be something that hasn't been dealt with 5, 10, 15 years ago. And that manifests into your personality, and it becomes who you are today. So when I go into nature, I'm turning on rest and digest. So when I come out, I'm in rest and digest without having to sleep. I'm recovering and I'm healing when I'm still alive, when I'm still awake. You know what I mean? Whereas the world we live in today, people, even in the time of rest, in the dark, when they're meant to be replenishing themselves, they cannot do that because their nervous system is on overdrive. Whether it's the lack of nutrition or the malnutrition, the caffeine, the short-term stress and the long-term stress is on their mind.
You still drink caffeine, right?
Yeah, I consume caffeine, but I've cleaned up my caffeine. I use caffeine.
Of course, I can imagine.
I use caffeine and I cycle caffeine. So I've all, as people know who might be familiar with me, I've worked in coffee all my life. I've drank coffee all my life. I love coffee. You're drinking a coffee. We all drink coffee, or we're all on stimulants. What I try and do in my daily practice is teach my body not to rely on stimulants and use stimulants purposely to perpetuate a certain, state of focus or energy when I need it, instead of constantly needing to rely on it to wake me up to go to a job I don't like. Do you know what I mean? So I use coffee very little now.
How are you having coffee right now? Like, what coffee are you having? Because I imagine that you're not sticking a pod into an espresso machine. Like,
No, of course not. No. I drink very high quality coffee. I buy, high grade beans. I grind them fresh, and I brew them in a cafetiere or a mocha or a kind of a dripper, a pour over. And I with the coffee now, it's more of a ritual. Like the brothers in North Africa or the brothers in the desert. The Berbers. They will all sit around and have the tea. It's a ritual. For me now, coffee is more a ritual. I'll go out, for a coffee, or meet friends, we have a coffee. It's not, I need a coffee to wake up. Do you know what I mean? I can work without needing any stimulation anymore, you know? And again, a lot of us don't need it, but because we've fallen into it, because it's a habit, we've done it for so long that it's become, we're in a sleep state where we just do, it's all zombified. We just take the coffee and we don't appreciate what it's doing to our body, or it's depleting us. Or the Red Bulls, you know, I had patients in here yesterday, you know, having 4 Red Bulls a day, you know what I mean? And with all due respect, you know, one of them messaged me today after the chat and he said, hey, I didn't drink any Red Bull today after our chat. So, alhamdulillah, you know what I mean? It's simple things like that. So I don't need caffeine. I enjoy it and I use it with a purpose. I drink matcha, you know. I started drinking matcha 2 years ago, alongside coffee. Coffee was still dominant, but now the matcha is dominant. You know, matcha is a green tea powder, comes from Japan. It contains the caffeine, it enhances the brain. It's amazing for cognition, and it doesn't deplete your kidneys or the adrenal glands of the kidneys, which regulate your stress. All right, so you've got these 2 glands at the top of the kidneys, which regulate stress. They release stress hormones. Every time you take caffeine, you zap the adrenal glands. And I've got years of healing to do. You know what I mean? I live this way because I've spent many years. I sipped an espresso when I was 4 from my dad. You know what I mean? I was drinking 3-4 espressos when I was managing coffee shops. So I'm still healing my body. You know, don't get it twisted. Like I'm not healed. I'm not fixed, but I'm relentless in my pursuit to try and fix the mistakes that I made when I wasn't awake, when I yet didn't know. So I think to the listeners today, the challenge is forget what's happened up until now, right? You know, the Jahiliyyah is gone, right? So it's all good. What do you do after this conversation? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying drinking coffee is Jahiliyyah. I'm just saying lack of knowing certain things that I will discuss today, not being aware or conscious of them. After these come into your conscious space now, what do you do? That's your test from Allah. Allah now is going to put you to account. You know what I mean? So you either switch off Freshly Grounded now and put something else on, or you listen, you take notes, and you reflect within. You know what I mean? And analyze yourself. Don't let anyone else do it. Bring yourself into account. You know what I mean? So
what's one of those like principles then that you think that perhaps the kind of mass society is taking part in, that probably we should, like, you know, slow down, speed up, or transform and change?
We living in the disease of the modern age is inflammation. All right, chronic inflammation. Now, the chronic inflammation can manifest itself throughout the body. You know what I mean? Emotionally, psychologically, physically. You know what I mean? But it's just inflammation. So we live in an inflammatory world. There's stimulation from all sorts of different energies which are coming into our sacred body, our sacred spiritual body, our sacred physical body. You know, and I always refer to this in the Quran, you know, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. The Most High says we created you in the best of forms. We are perfect. Yeah, so what we do throughout our human experience deteriorates from that perfection. So what we need to...
Wow, it's only downhill. It's only downhill from there.
Downhill, right?
Wow.
For all of us.
Yeah, of course.
It's how much can you salvage?
Sure, wow.
So, you know, when the baby is... and he comes out of the mother's womb, you know, the baby is perfect.
Pure.
You don't need to put anything in the baby. You don't need to give the baby anything. It is born with an immune system. It's born in fitrah. It's born with a consciousness and a calling. You don't need to influence or add anything to it. You know what I mean? Wow. So what do? We start to put things in the baby, right? And we start to manipulate its perfection from inception. The baby comes out, shaitan goes, hey, what are you saying? Come here. You know what I mean? It's a slippery slope from birth. So this journey really for us, from the day we are born to the day we go back into the grave, is realizing the imperfection of ourselves, taking responsibility for that, and then striving to regain that perfection, because it's possible. We will never get there, but there is a prototype. The prototype is there. The teachers who have preserved that knowledge, that sacred knowledge of the prototype, are there. You just got to go look for them. You know what I mean? And what I'm trying to do, and what I'm doing in my life, in my practice, is looking for that sacred knowledge, breaking it down, understanding it from a scientific, but also from a common sense perspective, a human perspective, a kind of an Aboriginal perspective, and then breaking it down into simplified versions so people can implement it within their life. Hence why I have a clinic, hence why I coach people. Because I understand that if I was to give you the prototype and the books and the teachers and the tradition and say, there you go, you're going to be like, where do I start? How do I implement this? How do I do this? So this is why I live what I live and I do what I do, you know, striving for all of this so that I can create avenues for people to implement elements of the sacred knowledge within their life. And trust me, every time I've done that within my life, it's leveled me up. And I wouldn't be here. You know what I mean?
So 100%. You say that there's things that you're going to talk about today that you know, people need to become conscious of and make changes, because those changes will improve their life. And the first one you mentioned was the fact that we have chronic inflammation. Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, chronic inflammation. So again, we are always receiving stimulation into our senses. We have sight, we have vision, we have smell, we have hearing, we have food that we eat, and the air that we breathe, right? So all of these are a potential avenue for shaitan to create inflammation in your body. You know what I mean? Simple. It's the narrative, it's archetypal, it's the archetype.
So you're saying what we inhale, whether it be through our food, through our breathing, through our ears, through what we see with our eyes, when we inhale it, that can cause an inflammation.
Yeah.
And like, so the obvious one is like what you eat can cause inflammation in your skin, right? But like you're saying that even what we, for example, if we watch haram, then that's going to cause an inflammation that can exert itself out of us in perhaps our actions, or like a removal of barakah. Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to kind of string it together for myself.
The human journey of a Muslim is the purification, right? It's tazkiyah.
Right. Okay. Fine. Yeah.
So the ultimate thing we all need to focus on is the purification of the heart. I mean, the spiritual heart. Now, guess what? The physical heart, the physiological heart, is the engine of everything.
Right. So it's connected.
We're living in a time where people are dying from heart disease, heart attacks, you know, cardiorespiratory problems, asthma, you know, all of, you know, atherosclerosis, all of these things, even though they are physically, physical disease states. Where do you think your heart is going to be spiritually if physically your heart is already sick?
Yeah, not in a good position.
Not in a good place. Because in order for you to be able to practice a high level of spirituality, right, you need to first purify the physical. Ramadan is just, again, let's bring it back into things we understand. Just look at Ramadan. Allah has prescribed us, the Most High has prescribed us and ordered us to fast. Why? So we can clean the physical vessel. Why? So Iman can go up. Why? So we can reflect on our purpose. There is nothing interfering with the ruh and the spirit from a material place. Obviously, from the food we eat, but we look at Ramadan again. Don't watch haram, don't listen to haram, don't be around haram. These are all the stimulation into the senses. What I'm saying isn't something unique or novel or unknown to people or Muslims. It's just something maybe Muslims haven't reflected on, because this isn't my knowledge. This is knowledge from people who are far smarter, far purer than me. I just recognize the fitrah in it. So when we're looking at disease, bring it back to Ramadan. You strip back everything. You strip back water, you strip back food, you strip back the music or, or frequency. And again, everything is frequency. People are like, music or sound, right? People are toxic. Who are you surrounding yourself with? The Prophet ﷺ said, you are your close companions. You are your circle. That is inflammation. You can have inflammatory people around you. They feed you anxiety and doubt and they belittle your visions or your dreams or your goals or your ambitions. People are inflammatory. So again, Ramadan, what do people do? Seclusion. It's khalwa, right? Last 10 days, khalwa. Now, I practice khalwa outside of Ramadan when I'm up in the hills in nature. So when Ramadan comes, it's not difficult for me to go into a khalwa spiritually. I don't have to go to a masjid. I can do khalwa outside of a masjid because it's a state of mind. You can be in a masjid doing khalwa and you're still there, not in the masjid. You're back home.
What I find interesting about what you're saying and how you are is that I would say you're quite an extroverted person. Like whenever I meet you, you're very sociable. You love talking to people. You love finding out things about people. And the actions that you're talking about sound to a normal person like an introverted actions, right? And so my defense mechanism says, oh yeah, that's fine, but you're an introvert, and so you find it easier to isolate. But you're not. You're an extrovert, yeah. And so it's even more. I suppose like enjoyable to listen to, but also like interesting and intriguing because you are an extrovert. You are very sociable. You love people. You love talking to people. I see every time I see you, you have this great energy about you. Yet you're so comfortable with your own self. And me, who I would consider myself an extrovert, I'm quite uncomfortable with myself. If I'm alone, I don't like being alone. I don't enjoy my own time. I love being around people. I love bouncing off of people's energy. If I'm by myself, I try to run away from that.
We can trace that. If we sat down, and we looked at your history and your childhood, we can trace why you don't like being around, why you like being around people.
Could it not be just why I do like being around people? You're saying?
Yeah, why you prefer being with people than being with yourself.
But so you can't just. Could you not just? Is it lazy to just put it down to preference, personality, genetics?
Far from. Our personalities are Our personalities is an inheritance of our
experiences. Okay.
Yeah. So our formative years from 0 to 7 is when the subconscious mind develops.
Fine.
It's a huge time. It's massive for your nervous system. You're just absorbing information. Like your kid right now is absorbing Faisal without Faisal even noticing the child. Right? Alhamdulillah, you're a beautiful child. I saw him briefly a while back.
He's being very naughty that day.
Yeah, right. Probably
he's being very naughty that day.
Right? There was a lot going on. But what we do with children is we make the children accommodate us, whereas we need to accommodate the children.
Yeah.
Because they're much closer to fitrah and truth and pure state than we are. You know what I mean? So what we do with our children and what our parents did with us is they try and create these decisions for us. They try and design our life. You need to do this. You need to study this. You're going to do this. It's all about them, because they haven't had their needs fulfilled. They haven't had their dreams manifest. They've been limited and put down. So they project that upon us. You know what I mean? Whereas we should just let the children be and play, and we just should sit there, observe, and study them. You know what I mean? Because
you know what? Actually, on that point, one point that I find amazing is I remember somebody in the gym once. They were trying to talk to somebody else about squatting and how to squat properly, right? Yeah. And they were saying that if you look at a child, when a child picks something up, it picks something up by squatting, picking it up and standing back up, and that's a fitrah. That's what's natural to us, and that is how we should be picking things up. It's so unnatural and lazy of us to bend over and put pressure on our back, so our legs are straight, we're bending to pick up something from the floor, right? But if you look at a child, and I watch my child now, instead of him going like that to pick something up, he goes like this.
Where
He
did
goes
learn?
down. No,
Wait.
but he's fitra. So
Yeah.
when he picks something up, but that's natural, and that's how he should be. But he's not lazy because he doesn't know yet. He doesn't know yet that he needs to save time and all this kind of stuff, and he's got stresses. And so what's natural for his body is that his back remains straight the entire time. His legs bend down like a squat, and he grabs it and he gets back up. And so what I did is in the house, I started. I thought, well, let me try that, and I started like picking things up in that way. And my wife was looking at me like I was the biggest weirdo ever. And I was like, it feels really pure though to be doing this. Like it hurts probably because of the years of damage I've done to my back by not doing it in this way.
Yeah.
But it feels very pure and natural to, when you pick something up, actually go down in a straight line like a squat, as opposed to bending my whole body. But that's, I suppose, a physical example of what you're explaining to us, which is this idea of like children being and us observing them and learning from them.
We spent many years sitting on a chair for 8 hours a day, right? So we lost the mobility that we would have maintained if we were spending our childhood playing, climbing, running around, getting dirty, climbing trees. So the system desensitizes our bodies to our potential, physically, spiritually, mentally, right?
That's so true, man. Wow.
I mean, we just sit down for 8 hours a day for 10 years just to observe what somebody is telling us what to think, right?
Yeah.
And then, we're constantly pressurized to succeed from such a young age. So we have this fight or flight ingrained within our neurology from a very young age. Do you know what I mean? The kid should be in rest and digest, playing, absorbing, just getting dirty, just completely being free. But we indoctrinize these children from a very young age into the system, like we were indoctrinated. So my journey has been to try and break out of that, to realize where, and again, I don't even put blame on my family or my parents. It is how it was. I didn't have control over that. So I just need to focus on what have I got control over now. I need to regain my mobility, right? You can't squat because your spine, your hips, your hip function, your knees, your ankles are not moving in unison the way they're designed to move, because لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. You have the potential to squat and jump and climb if you practice these movements. If you don't use it, you lose it. So from childhood, we just go, now sit down, shut up, just revise, just learn this information, right? And okay, you've only got 5 minutes to get to school, so just quickly bang a cereal, right? You know what I mean? We can be here all day, but ultimately, we get initiated into the inflammatory lifestyle from a very young age, and more so now than 10, 20 years ago, because now we have inflammation from the Wi-Fi, we have inflammation from the 5G, we have inflammation from all this artificial energy around us. The phone is going off every 2 seconds, it's just constant stress. So this is why I know I need to hit the hills and meditate and just be there, not think about anything, because I am just shedding away all of those frequencies that were disturbing my perfection. And guess what? I got 15, 20 years of healing to catch up on. You know what I mean? So I'm busy trying to figure that out, work on stripping back the limits and the stress and the anxiety and the things everybody said I can't do, that were impossible. You know what I mean? I'm showing people that I can, and I am. You know what I mean? Everybody has that potential.
You mentioned that you're now married, which is something different to when we last spoke, or when we last met on the podcast. How has that changed things? Like, because your lifestyle, as we mentioned, is you're trying to heal. You're trying to you connect with nature. Is that something that your family aligns with and like understands that you feel like you need that?
Of course. Again, we take it back to the biopsychosocial spiritual, right? Islam is about balance. It's the middle way, right? Extreme to this side or this side, not good. So it's all good being in my own presence, disconnected from everyone else. But that is really to train me up, to balance me out. So when I am back into society, I'm balanced, I'm relaxed around people. And again, Prophet ﷺ, this was his journey. You know, before prophecy, he was a socio-religious deviant. He would just hit the hills. Society didn't interest him. It was boring. He didn't want to do all the play. He wasn't interested in the matrix of the Arabs. You know what I mean? He just hit the hills to meditate. And then he received revelation. Now, what I find so beautiful about Islam and its truth is, subhanAllah, Allah, ajib, is most spiritual disciplines, whether you look at, you know, yogi traditions, you know, Hinduism, or look at Buddhism, or look at any spiritual tradition. You know, you look at the monks of the Christian monks before the manifestation of Islam. You look at the Buddhists. They just disconnect from society. They just hit the hills. They sit in the monasteries. Khalas. Islam, what it does, and what the Prophet did, sallam, is you go, you meditate, you cleanse, you detoxify, you connect with the Most High, you connect with your purpose. Then you come back into the real world and you apply that in Mecca, you apply that in the souk, you apply that in the masjid, you apply that in your family. Whereas most spiritual traditions, a lot of them, you just hit the monastery and khalas. You're there for life. You don't have a family. You don't have intimate relations. You dedicate yourself to the higher power. Whereas Islam came and said, all right, that's all good now, but hey, this is useless if you don't apply it. So when I hit the hills, when I go and meditate, when I breathe, when I eat well, it's so when I'm in the presence of my wife, I'm a good servant. I'm not aggy. I know my place. I'm balanced. And I fulfill her needs. I can analyze what she needs from me because I'm relaxed. I'm not stressed. If I'm in rest and digest, I'm able to see. I'm able to fathom what she's telling me with her body language, what she's telling me with her eyes, what she's telling me with her emotions, and obviously what she's telling me with her speech. But if I'm stressed,
you carry on.
If I'm stressed, I'm going to be in this primal fight or flight. I'm not going to be present. I'm with my wife, but I'm not. I'm elsewhere. I'm thinking about the job. I'm thinking about the email. I'm thinking about the unpaid bill. Now that's a recipe for a disastrous relationship. You understand? So Islam, you know, spirituality, this path is you go, you purify, you cleanse, you reflect, you bring your energy into balance, you come back into the real world, you serve. Things start to destabilize, you hit the hills again. If you study the seerah of Prophet ﷺ, pre-prophecy, pre-messengership, that's what he would do. And the messengership was like, all right, cool. If you want to meditate and disconnect, you do tahajjud, because when the sun rises, you're too busy serving the community. Prophet ﷺ is there serving the people. You know what I mean? But then he finds time in the night when everybody's asleep to connect with the Most High. He hasn't got time to hit the hills anymore. Hitting the hills happened before he received the revelation. It was a preparation for him. Do you know what I'm saying? So for me...
Yeah, it's interesting because my question to you was going to be, how do you recommend that a person in the city who doesn't have access to nature in the way that you're explaining it goes through this process of rest and digest so that they can be best with their family and all that kind of stuff? And then you gave the answer to tahajjud.
Yeah, there you go.
Being awake when everyone's asleep and just being alone with your Lord.
You know what I mean?
And that's rest and digest. It literally is, isn't it? It's what you're explaining, and that feeling of tahajjud is different. It does feel like you're, no matter where you are, you do feel a very spiritual connect.
Yeah, you know, I was having this conversation with Peter. Peter came. He's a great guy. He's a videographer. He was with me over the weekend. I was in Leicester. You know, he wanted to do a project. And he wanted to film a movie, and we just decided to just connect, start shooting, just documenting. I was in Leicester already. I met him in Bristol. We drove up, and I just did my thing for 3 days. And Peter was just with me, and he documented it. And there's a movie going to come out at the back of that, inshallah, which can give people some visuals potentially, and some context to what I'm speaking about. And I was telling Peter, as we just hit, we were up and breathing and just in nature, and just there was no one there. It's beautiful. Sunrise, we hit nature after Fajr. Peter's is he's on his path, right? He's non-Muslim. He's a great kid, very young. And as we're walking, I said, you know what, Peter? Faith is rest and digest, right? Let's bring faith to, because people say, oh, what's faith? What is God? What is Allah? We can't understand it because it's bigger than and more complex than what our mind can comprehend. So I say, all right, let's try and make this, kind of bring it into layman terms. And it just hit me. Faith is rest and digest. Faith is, I'm going to be okay. My meal is provided for. I will have shelter. You know what I mean? Faith is, I have so much faith in Allah, I'm not going to worry because He's going to take care of me. That is rest and digest. Do you know what I mean? So I can practice that spiritually by salah, dhikr, fasting. And I can practice that physically and emotionally by journaling, by breathing, by eating right. Because then the stress of my body, because I'm not feeding it the right nutrients, is going to mess my thinking process up. It's not going to flow. It works both ways, inside out, outside in. If I'm not eating right, I'm not thinking right. So I don't think right, and then I end up making bad choices. So rest and digest is of utmost importance for every single person who wants to live a happy, fulfilled life. The more you can resonate at rest and digest day in, day out, the more you will have good skin, clear thoughts, antidepressant effects, anxiolytic effects, calming, sedative effects, which you don't need from outside sources, which you don't need from food or caffeine or people. You know what I mean? Rest and digest, if you can master rest and digest in your own self, that's step one. So, all right, I'm cheating now. I'm in nature. There's no one here to push my buttons, all right? It's easy. The hills are easy. Just me, meditation, but then bring it back to the real world. Now I'm around my wife. I'm around my parents. I'm around the environment, the society. Now that's when it's game time. The training is up there. So calm the breath, eat the right foods, smile. You know what I mean? Now I'm able to manifest the training that I do spiritually, physically, in the real world. You know what I mean? Which allows me to serve my people.
Let's talk lockdown, because we're talking to you on a day where today was day one of this 1 month lockdown that we're in, whether people are kind of following it or not.
Sure.
What's your take on kind of how a person survives lockdown with all the stresses of perhaps not understanding whether they'll be in or out of a job, with kind of worrying about their loved ones, if they've got elderly members of their family who they worry about their health, they worry about them kind of catching COVID, and then at the same time they've got kind of just be in isolation. And before you give me your answer of your take on it and how people should respond, how people can look after their mind, body and soul throughout it, I heard a very interesting perspective on it yesterday, which changed things for me, because I intended to speak to you about lockdown today, and my idea was me saying, how I saw it playing out in my head is I thought I'll speak to Bouaziz and I'll say to him, what does he think about lockdown? How can a person stay connected in lockdown? And then Bouaziz would say something along the lines of, here's how you exercise and move even if you're confined to your own home. Here's how you eat healthy even if you're confined to your own home. And here's how you just stay active. Here's how you stay mentally, physically healthy, strong. And that's what I was expecting from the conversation. And then yesterday I was speaking to someone who said that they spoke to a person it's quite vague, but they were in a lecture or listening to somebody talk who was in prison or something. And people asked him, like, how what are your tips on how to survive isolation or lockdown, right, from his experience? And he said everybody has these ideas of, in isolation, how do I get hench? How do I get fit? How do I get healthy? How do I do all of these things while I'm in isolation? And he said isolation is such a pressure on your mental state that if you just get out of isolation, that's a win. Let alone getting out of it hench, or getting out of it like, you know, financially, like you've created this huge idea. So that really changed kind of my thoughts on like on how tough isolation can be for people, and the fact that maybe instead of trying to focus on how we can be the best versions of ourselves while we have this time, actually just try and take each day as it comes and get through it mentally first. What are your thoughts on that?
My number one tip is to focus on what you can control.
Wow.
Because if you start to focus and wonder on what you can't control, rest and digest is out the window, right? You're already in inflammation. Doesn't matter how much you train, doesn't matter how many weights you lift, doesn't matter how much you control your caloric intake, you are not going to grow muscle. You are not going to kind of change or adapt your physique, because that can only happen in rest and digest. So if you think that training and going on a protocol and starting to do all these productive things is going to help you through lockdown, because you're using these as a distraction instead of facing the lockdown head on. All right, what can I control? Rest and digest. If you can switch on what can I control is presence. It's the moment, now. I'm not focusing about yesterday or the last lockdown, and I'm not focusing about what's going to happen in 4 weeks' time. I'm going to focus about now, because the angel of death might come through now and take my spirit. That's the reality. So you just focus on now, presence. The next moment, moment to moment. Bring yourself into the moment. That's why the breath work is great. Because the breath work brings you into the moment. It balances and calibrates your mind and your body and your cells. And it can create the rest and digest for you to think clearly. But focus on the controllables, man. All right, what have I got control of now? My choices. Alhamdulillah. Now it's game on. Now we're in an abundance mindset. Now it's, all right, I've got all this time, all this space to do so much. Whereas if we bring it back into this reductionist and this mindset where it's like we haven't got the gyms open, can't see my friends, I can't go to work, stress, cortisol, adrenaline, healing mode shut down, hypertrophy shut down, muscle growth shut down. So in order for you to and this is why the industry focuses so much on supplementation and focuses so much on external factors which can influence growth of tissue and the transformation of the body. It's because they haven't got the innate ability to do it from within. Do you understand? So all you need to do is just realize, all right, what have I got control over today? Cool. All right, I've got all this time on my hands. How am I going to do that? Let me first focus on me. Not my kid, not my mum, not my neighbor. Let me focus on me and get me solid. When I'm solid, I can serve my mum, my kid, and my neighbor. Do you understand? So the last lockdown for me was no different than this lockdown. I was out in nature every day, no shadow of doubt. Me and my wife, we were out. I was working from home, and then it was during the lockdown that you know, I left my job and things like that anyway. But lockdown for me was liberating, because it made me realize that I was taking on so much stress, and it put things into perspective, and I had to literally completely turn my life back around during the last lockdown. So this lockdown, even though that lockdown didn't affect me mentally in terms of like, oh, you know, I was anxious, and because alhamdulillah, risk will always come. I had a roof over my head, I had food, you know what I mean, I had my wife, alhamdulillah, I was good. However, the issue could arise now where it's like, oh, here we go again. We're replaying the same cassette. The first cassette, the music wasn't nice. So it's likely that your nervous system is going to turn back and manifest all those emotions from the last lockdown. And you go into this mindset which turns on fight or flight on a hormonal level, on a neurological level. So do yourself a favor this lockdown, activate rest and digest by bringing yourself into the moment and having hamd and shukr. Alhamdulillah for my faith. Alhamdulillah for breath. Alhamdulillah for life. Alhamdulillah that I can drink the water. Alhamdulillah there's a meal right in front of me now. That is all you should focus on. Tomorrow the risk will come. Tomorrow the opportunities will come. And tomorrow or in a month's time the lockdown might be lifted. But you just have to realize, the lockdown is an attack on the psyche. You know what I mean? It's all in your head. Because you can literally break down and melt and completely shut down, disconnect from this lockdown in a seemingly positive manner. You train it out, you work it out. You know what I mean? You keep yourself occupied, not to think about that. So even though you're seemingly doing healthy things for yourself, it's a disconnect. Neurologically, you're still in stress. So you just got to face it like head on. All right, here's the problem. I'm in lockdown. I don't like it. I don't want to be in lockdown. But alhamdulillah, what can I control? I control my breathing. I can go into nature. There's no one stopping me now. I don't have to go to work. Okay, I don't mind driving 40 minutes to hit the hills for 5 hours. Beautiful. You know what I mean? So that's my advice. Focus on the controllables. And
it's amazing because we released a version of the Freshly Grounded game just before you and I started having this chat, literally about an hour ago, called Freshly Grounded, the Lockdown Extension Pack, right? The Lockdown Expansion Pack. And it's like questions that you can play over a video call, FaceTime, or with your loved ones at home that bring you to presence, right? Like they're questions that are lockdown centric. They're about lockdown, so you can really come to terms with it. And I think what will be a nice way to round up this podcast would be for us to play the extension pack. And now you don't have the cards, even though it's a free download and it's available via the link in our bio on Instagram. But I'll ask you the questions, and perhaps or what we could do. Is I can actually get the cards like up on the screen and then we can both answer them. That sounds good, doesn't it?
Cool.
Let's do that, man, because it will bring us to talk about these. So I think there's 20 in total, so we won't go for all of them. But so we answer these in I suppose in response to lockdown, right? And actually, I don't know how to select these because I don't want to read them and then. Should we go in order and do all 20, but just fast?
Let's go for it. Forever. I'm easy.
Well, I'll skip some. There we go. Okay, we got one. It's coming up on screen now. It says, "How do you plan to find me time?" Go on, that's a question for you. So during this 1 month, how do you plan to find me time?
I reckon people should guess.
Yeah. I think that one's a bit obvious for you. Fine. Okay, you're going to hit the hills. How about this one? Yeah. This is a good one. This is a really good one. How can you use this time to support local businesses?
That's a very important one, man. Support local businesses. Make it a priority. You know what I mean? You supporting a business can be the difference between somebody eating and feeding their children and their family. You know what I mean? That is serious. Here in Hertfordshire, we were just about to launch a food buyers club, myself and my friend Giorgio, where we source produce from farms. We already do that. We do that in between us for our own families. You know what I mean? Giorgio will get some dairy, he'll get some, eggs, butter, milk, really high quality from the farm, and he picks them up every week, and he gets a bit extra for me, and I pay him some money, and we're good. And I used to do that in Leicester. I'm in a new city, so I've had to adapt. But yeah, just the food you're eating. Support local. Go and find a farm around near you. Google it. You know what I mean? There's produce being grown. You know, there's you know what I mean? So that's what I would say. Find a local farm.
Cool.
Farmers
I like
market.
that answer. It's an important question, man. Supporting local businesses is kind of more important now than ever. Let's see what one I want to hit. Okay, this is a good one. That one I have for you. I'm trying to. A lot of these are like. It's like these are like the Bouaziz cards because they're so like. I'll give you an example. It's like how do you plan to improve your relationship with yourself?
Be honest.
How can you utilize the time in lockdown to achieve your goal? So I'm trying to get questions that are not things that you've already spoken about for the last hour, right?
And that's. I'll just quickly brief on that. That's a very important question. You know, people need to just be honest with themselves and cut the BS. You know, it's like, all right, my choice, my responsibility, my life. How do I change it? How do I control it? You know, so self-love for me was actually the way I began all of this, was to realize that I had to love myself first, to respect myself first before outsourcing that to anybody else. So yeah, just a little thing on that question.
Okay, I'm going to give you this one. I like this question a lot. What digital act of kindness could you do for a loved one today?
What digital act of kindness?
Yeah.
Wow. We live in a digital world, man. Support small business.
Yeah. For a loved one, what digital act of kindness could you do for a loved one today?
Buy them a Bouaziz candle.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Like a nice digital act of kindness is it could one that comes to my mind instantly is like just you could do both, support a local business and go do a digital act of kindness by like delivering a dessert to your mum's house, you know, or dinner's on me tonight, there's dinner coming to your house. Something like that is so nice, and it supports the business. It also is so nice because you're saying, look, don't worry about dinner tonight, it's on me. And you get to kind of connect with them without physically connecting with them. I think it's really, really cool. There's so many digital acts of kindness. We're going to do a post on Instagram on Freshly Grounded soon about different digital acts of kindness.
I'm not with that stuff, to be honest. Like, even though we live in a digital world and I'm on a social media, I'm not really up to date with how quickly everything is moving. You know, I've never been so maybe not the best person to answer that question.
Bro, do you know what? I'm going to read these questions to you because they're so, in hindsight, it's so crazy. It looks like we've literally sought your consultation to answer, to come up with these questions because it's so Bouaziz centric. Listen to these questions. I'm gonna read you all 20 from top to bottom. Finish the sentence. I know that Allah blank. Next one. How can you use this time to get closer to Allah? Next one. How can you use this time to support local businesses? How do you plan to find me time? How do you plan to improve your relationship with yourself? What side project are you going to take up? What's been this year's silver lining? Do you think I could be happier? How? Finish the sentence. Uncertainty makes me feel blank. How can you use your time in lockdown to achieve that goal? How do you cope with anxiety? What digital act of kindness could you do for a loved one today? What has improved since the last lockdown? What's pressuring you? Do you find it hard to live in the moment? Finish the sentence. I fear blank. What are you most grateful for since the last lockdown? Oh, I think I already said that one. What can you control? Which is one that you said earlier. What do you want your new daily routine to be? Which is quite cool. And then this one is really Bouaziz. When was the last time you took a deep breath? Wait, Kareem.
Yeah.
Do we have a double card in this extension pack? I think I've seen what are you most grateful for since the last lockdown twice. And I shouldn't be asking you that live on camera. I also just read out all of the cards. I'm so sorry because that probably means that we want people to go and download them, don't we? I've ruined it. Oh no, it's not come up twice. No, I think it's fine. I don't know why I read it twice.
I think
I've got because it's so late. Because it's so late, I've got the studio door open and Kareem's in the office. Like he just.
with these cards, it's this morning. I just felt inspired to share a story with all my followers and my friends, and I just said, look, today's the day one of lockdown. Take a walk into nature. Take a journal, a diary and a pen, and write down one thing that you're going to do to improve your physical health. One thing you're going to do to improve your mental health. One thing you're going to do to improve your spiritual health. Now, I also know that mental, spiritual, and physical is all intertwined, but setting goals, which we can focus back onto the controllables, are very important. And I would say the most important side project that you need to focus on is yourself.
Wow.
So that way it becomes the ultimate project. Because then you can realize your purpose, your path, your direction, and that might be the hardest thing for you to do. You can lose people around you. You can completely, break relationships, and everything can go wrong. But it can bring you a step closer to your truth. When you're in truth, you're in rest and digest. You're in health, and if you're healthy, you can serve the Creator much better. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think maybe that's what I'm going to have to say today. Leave it.
I appreciate that, man, and I appreciate your time. It was a bit of a shorter episode than we normally have, but with it being so late and being so digital, I don't want to take your time out. Being so late and so digital, I don't think that one made sense.
I don't want to keep eating myself, because I genuinely.
Oh, bro, we can listen to you all day.
You know what I mean? And this is my work. This is my life. I try and help people, and I coach people, and yes, I have services, I have products, but I'm just trying to bring people into this way of thinking and this way of being, which is bigger than myself.
Well, how can people support? How can people support and follow and get in touch?
Man, look, we've got the clinic space here. It's a beautiful space. People can pop in. They can, we sell products here. We have, we work with essential oils and aromatherapy. We work with, I work with nutrition. So I do like home delivery for bone broth, which is a really powerful, nutrient dense food. It's not a supplement; it's a food. I make beautiful candles with essential oils. I make products which are in line with my brand philosophy, and it's all natural. It's all about energy. The broth heals the gut. The candles heal the mind. You know what I mean? Etc. etc. So there's a lot of things that I can do to help people, to add value into their lives. And the simplest way for them really is to just connect to my Instagram and just hit me up, man. You know what I mean?
And your Instagram is?
Bouaziz Co. @ Bouaziz Co.
Sweet. Bouaziz, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. Sorry it's so late in the evening and you're going to have to lock up and go home now as well. Really, really appreciate your time. It's always amazing speaking to you. I always feel like I get such a big insight, and probably today more than ever, more than any chat that we've ever had, because I like I said, I'm in a different space now as I speak to you today, as opposed to other times I've spoken to you. So really, really appreciate it, and you've left me with a lot to think about. And inshallah we can connect. Let us not... the next time we connect have to be like, months or years down the line. It'd be amazing to see you soon.
Hey, I'm gonna invite you to come and hit the hills with me soon.
Bro, it's gonna be challenging for me because that's not me, but I'm 100%. I want to come down. I want to do it. I want to disconnect, and it sounds like I could really do with it, to be honest. So
it's not even disconnect; it's to reconnect.
Wow. Yeah,
That's
you're right. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true. Wow.
So,
thank you so much, Bouaziz, man.
Jazakallah khair. Lots of love. Inshallah, blessings and peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.